The turkey sat golden brown on the dining room table, but the warmth of the Thanksgiving meal couldn't hide the ice in Robert's voice as he stood up, wine glass trembling in his hand. "You want to know what I'm thankful for this year?" His words cut through the chatter of his family gathered around our table. "I'm thankful that I finally see my wife for what she really is." I felt my blood turn cold as 20 pairs of eyes turned toward me. Emma, my 9-year-old daughter, sat frozen beside me, her tablet clutched in her small hands. Robert's mother Patricia raised an eyebrow, while his brothers and their wives exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Robert, please sit down," I whispered, my voice barely audible above the sudden silence. "No, Zoe. Everyone needs to hear this." Robert's face was flushed with alcohol and anger. "My wife here thinks she's so perfect. Goes to her little marketing job, acts like she's contributing something meaningful to this family. But you know what she really is." The room was so quiet I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Emma's grip on her tablet tightened, and I noticed the red recording light was on. My heart raced as I realized what she was doing. "She's worthless," Robert continued, his voice growing louder. "A pathetic excuse for a wife and mother. Emma would be better off without her poisoning her mind with weakness." "That's enough," Patricia finally spoke up, but Robert ignored his mother. "You think you can just sit there looking innocent, Zoe? You think I don't know what you've been up to? Checking my phone, going through my things like some desperate housewife." Robert stepped closer to me and I could smell the bourbon on his breath. "I should have divorced you years ago." My hands were shaking as I tried to process what was happening. This was beyond his usual private cruelty. He had never humiliated me like this in front of his entire family before. "Daddy, stop," Emma said quietly, her voice barely a whisper. "Don't tell me what to do, Emma. This is between me and your mother." Robert's eyes were wild now, completely out of control. "Maybe it's time you learn the truth about the woman who raised you. How she spies on me, doesn't trust me, makes my life hell every single day." I could see his sister-in-law covering her teenage daughter's ears. His brother looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. But Robert wasn't done. "I work my tail off to provide for this family, and what do I get? A wife who questions every dollar I spend, who acts like she deserves respect she hasn't earned." He leaned down, his face inches from mine. "You want to know what I think of you, Zoe? You're nothing. You hear me? Nothing." The words hit me like physical blows. I had endured years of his private abuse, his manipulation, his control over every aspect of our lives. But this public destruction of my dignity felt like dying while still breathing. "Robert, that's your wife," Patricia said firmly. "The mother of your child." "Some mother," Robert laughed bitterly. "Emma, tell everyone how mommy cries herself to sleep every night. Tell them how she jumps every time I walk into a room because she knows she's disappointed me again." Emma's face had gone completely white, but she kept recording. I wanted to tell her to stop, to protect her from witnessing more of this nightmare, but something in her determined expression stopped me. "I've wasted the best years of my life on this woman," Robert continued, pacing around the table now like a predator circling his prey. "But that's about to change. Real soon, things are going to be very different in this house." The threat in his voice made my stomach drop. I thought about all the times he'd mentioned taking Emma away from me, all the times he'd hinted that I wasn't fit to be a mother. "Robert, please," I finally managed to say, my voice cracking. "Not in front of Emma." "Oh, now you care about Emma?" Robert's laugh was cruel. "Where was that concern when you were turning her against me? When you were teaching her to be weak just like you?" Emma stood up suddenly, her tablet still recording. "My mom isn't weak." The room went dead silent again. Robert's face darkened as he looked at our daughter. "What did you say?" "I said my mom isn't weak." Emma's voice was small but clear. "And you're being mean to her." Robert's hand shot out, and for a terrifying moment I thought he was going to strike Emma. Instead, he pointed at her with a trembling finger. "Go to your room. Now." "No." The single word hung in the air like a challenge. I had never seen Emma defy her father before, and neither had Robert. His face went through several emotions: surprise, anger, and then something that looked almost like fear. "What did you say to me?" Emma looked directly at her father, still holding her tablet. "I said no, Daddy. I'm not leaving Mom alone with you when you're acting like this." Patricia was staring at Emma with something that might have been pride. Robert's brother finally found his voice. "Maybe we should all just calm down and—" "Shut up, Tom," Robert snapped, never taking his eyes off Emma. "This is my house, my family, and my rules." "Then maybe your rules need to change," Emma said quietly. I watched my husband's face go from red to purple to completely white. In that moment, seeing our 9-year-old daughter stand up to him with more courage than I had shown in years, something shifted inside me. The tablet in Emma's hands continued recording as Robert stared at her, apparently speechless for the first time in years. The family dinner had become something else entirely, a battleground where the lines were being drawn for a war I hadn't even known was coming. But as I looked at my daughter's determined face and then at the shocked expressions around our dining room table, I realized this night wasn't ending. It was just beginning. After Robert finally stormed out of the dining room and his family left in uncomfortable silence, Emma and I sat alone in the wreckage of our Thanksgiving dinner. The turkey had grown cold and gravy congealed on abandoned plates. My daughter hadn't said a word for 20 minutes, just sat there holding her tablet like it contained the secrets of the universe. "Emma, sweetie, are you okay?" I reached over to touch her shoulder, but she pulled away slightly. "Mom, I need to show you something." Her voice was serious in a way that made my chest tight. "But you have to promise not to get scared." "What do you mean?" Emma looked toward the stairs, listening for any sign of her father. Robert had locked himself in his office after his family left, probably drinking more bourbon and planning how to punish us both for the dinner disaster. "I've been recording Daddy," Emma said simply. The words hit me like cold water. "What?" "For 3 months. Every time he's mean to you, every time he says those things, every time he makes you cry." Emma's fingers moved across her tablet screen. "I have hours of recordings, Mom." My heart started racing. "Emma, why would you? How did you? Remember when you bought me this tablet for my birthday? You showed me how to use the recording app for school projects." Emma's face was calmer than mine felt. "I started using it when Daddy would yell at you late at night. I thought maybe if I recorded it, I could show someone and they would make him stop." I stared at my 9-year-old daughter, this little person who had been protecting me while I thought I was protecting her. "Oh, Emma. Do you want to see?" I wasn't sure I could handle watching myself being torn apart, but I nodded. Emma tapped the screen, and suddenly my own voice filled the living room, weak, pleading, apologetic. "Robert, please, I was just asking about the credit card statement." Then came his voice, cold and cutting. "You don't ask me about money, Zoe. You don't question how I spend what I earn. You want to know where that money went? It went to pay for things you can't even understand, to handle problems you're too stupid to deal with." Emma paused the recording. This was from last Tuesday night. After I went to bed. I remembered that night. I had found a charge for $2,000 at some restaurant I'd never heard of. When I asked Robert about it, he'd exploded, telling me I was paranoid and controlling. I had apologized to him. Actually apologized for asking a reasonable question about our joint account. "There's more, Mom." Emma scrolled through a long list of audio files. "Look at all these dates. August 15th, September 3rd, September 20th, October 12th. The list went on and on. Each date represented a night when Robert had torn me down, and my daughter had been recording it all. "Emma, this is..." I couldn't find words. "I know it's bad to spy on people," Emma said quickly. "But Daddy was hurting you and you never fought back. You just took it, and I was scared he was going to make you disappear." "Make me disappear?" Emma nodded seriously. "Like Tommy's mom at school. His dad made her go away, and now Tommy only sees her on weekends. Daddy says things about sending you away sometimes. When he thinks I can't hear." My blood went cold. Robert had never directly threatened to leave me or take Emma away, but there had been hints. Comments about how Emma would be better off with just him, how I was holding both of them back. "Play another one," I said quietly. Emma tapped on a file from just last week. This time the quality was better. She must have gotten closer to record it. "You're pathetic, Zoe. You know that? A grown woman who can't handle basic responsibilities. Emma's going to grow up thinking this is normal, thinking it's okay to be weak like you are." My recorded voice was barely audible. "I'm trying my best, Robert. Your best is garbage. Your best is why this house is always a mess, why Emma doesn't respect me, why nothing in our lives works the way it should. You poison everything you touch." I had to close my eyes. Hearing it played back, knowing Emma had listened to her father destroy her mother night after night, was almost unbearable. "Mom," Emma said softly, "you're not weak. And you're not pathetic. Daddy's wrong about everything." I pulled her into a hug, this brave little girl who had been fighting a battle I didn't even know existed. "Why didn't you tell me about the recordings before?" "I was waiting for the right time. And I was scared you might make me delete them." Emma pulled back to look at me. "But after tonight, after what he did at dinner in front of everyone, I knew I had to show you. How many people do you think believed him tonight?" Emma considered this seriously. Grandma Patricia looked really mad at Daddy, and Uncle Tom looked sick. I don't think anyone believed the things he said about you. That was something, at least. Robert's family had seen him at his worst tonight, had witnessed the verbal abuse I'd been enduring in private for years. There's something else, Mom? Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. I recorded something else today before dinner, when Daddy was on the phone in his office. What kind of phone call? He was talking to someone about money, and about making you go away permanently. Emma's eyes were wide and scared now. He said he was almost ready to end this marriage, and that soon you wouldn't be a problem anymore. The room felt like it was spinning. Are you sure that's what he said? Emma nodded and pulled up another audio file. I was hiding outside his office door. Listen. Robert's voice came through clearly, speaking to someone on the phone. The paperwork will be ready next week. Once that's done, Zoe won't have any claim to the house or any of the assets. Emma will stay with me and Zoe will be out of our lives for good. A stranger's voice responded, what if she fights it? She won't. By the time she realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. I've been setting this up for months. Emma stopped the recording. Mom, what does that mean? I felt like I couldn't breathe. Robert had been planning to destroy me, to take Emma away, and I had been completely blind to it. While I was trying to save our marriage, he was plotting to end it on his terms. It means, I said slowly, that we need to be smarter than your father thinks we are. Emma nodded seriously. What are we going to do? I looked at my daughter, at her tablet full of evidence, at the determination in her young face. For the first time in years, I didn't feel helpless. We're going to fight back. The next morning, Robert left early for what he called a business meeting, but I noticed he took an overnight bag. After 3 months of Emma's recordings, I was starting to recognize the patterns. Weekend business trips usually meant he was seeing someone else. Is Daddy coming back today? Emma asked over her cereal. Probably tomorrow. I sat down across from her with my coffee. Emma, I need to ask you something important. Do you remember where Daddy keeps his papers? Like the important documents in his office. Emma nodded. In the big filing cabinet behind his desk. And he has a safe in the closet, but I don't know what's in there. Has he ever left his office unlocked when he goes away? Sometimes. He forgets to lock it when he's in a hurry. Emma studied my face. Are we going to look for more evidence? Smart girl. Maybe. Would that be okay with you? Emma finished her cereal and stood up. Mom, if Daddy's planning to take me away from you, then we need to know everything he's planning. Right. I nodded. Right. An hour later, we stood outside Robert's office door. He had indeed forgotten to lock it in his rush to leave. The room smelled like his cologne and the bourbon he drank every night while working late. Okay, here's what we're going to do, I told Emma. You keep watch at the window for his car just in case. I'll look through his files. If you see him coming, we leave everything exactly like we found it and get out. Deal? Deal. The filing cabinet was organized in a way that was perfectly Robert, everything labeled and controlled. I started with the section marked personal, and immediately found things that made my stomach drop. Divorce papers. Drafted but not yet filed, dated for next week. According to the documents, Robert was claiming I was an unfit mother with mental health issues. He was requesting full custody of Emma and asking that I receive no alimony due to my unstable behavior and inability to contribute meaningfully to the household. Mom, what's wrong? Emma had noticed my face. Your father is planning to divorce me next week, I said quietly. And he's trying to make it look like I'm crazy so he can keep you. Emma's face hardened in a way that reminded me uncomfortably of Robert. What else is in there? I kept digging. Financial statements showing accounts I didn't know existed. Investment portfolios worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, all in Robert's name only. Credit cards I'd never seen before, with charges for expensive restaurants, jewelry stores, and hotel rooms. Emma, come look at this. I held up a credit card statement. Do you recognize this restaurant? Chez Laurent? Emma squinted at the paper. That's where Daddy took me for my birthday dinner last month. But look at the date on this charge. She was right. The charge was from 2 weeks after Emma's birthday, for 2 dinners and a bottle of champagne. Robert had taken someone else to our special place. Keep looking, Mom. I found phone records next. Hundreds of calls to the same number over the past 6 months. Text message logs that made everything crystal clear. I can't wait to start our life together without all this drama, one message read. Once the divorce is final and I have full custody, we can finally be a real family. The response, I know this is hard, but Zoe doesn't deserve you or Emma. Soon she'll be out of the picture for good. Mom? Emma was reading over my shoulder. Who's he texting? I scrolled up to see the contact name, Stephanie M. Someone from his work, I think. I tried to remember if Robert had ever mentioned to Stephanie. He had, actually. His new assistant who was so much more competent than the last one. Emma frowned. Is she the one he's going to marry after he divorces you? The question hit me like a punch. My 9-year-old daughter was asking about her father's affair with the same calm logic she used for math homework. I don't know, sweetie. Maybe. I kept digging through the files and found something even worse. Bank statements showing large withdrawals from our joint accounts, money that had been transferred to accounts I couldn't access. Robert had been systematically moving our assets where I couldn't touch them. Mom, look at this. Emma had found a folder marked YIM. Future plans. Inside were school applications for expensive private boarding schools, all in other states. Emma's name was on every application, with Robert listed as the sole guardian. The applications were dated for next fall. He's planning to send me away too, Emma said quietly. What? Emma held up a brochure for a boarding school in Virginia. Look at this letter. It was from the admissions office, congratulating Robert on Emma's acceptance and asking for confirmation of enrollment. The letter was dated just last week. I sat down heavily in Robert's desk chair. Emma, I think your father has been planning this for a very long time. Planning what exactly? To get rid of both of us. Divorce me, take you away, and start a new life with this Stephanie person. Emma was quiet for a long moment, staring at the boarding school brochures. But what if we don't let him? What do you mean? I mean, what if we take all this evidence and show it to someone who can stop him? Emma's eyes were bright with an idea. Like the police or a judge or someone like that. I looked around Robert's office, at all the evidence of his deception and planning. 4 months, he had been setting up a trap designed to destroy my life and separate me from my daughter. But he had made one crucial mistake. He had underestimated both of us. Emma, how good are you at taking pictures with that tablet? She grinned. Really good. Want me to photograph everything? Everything. Every document, every statement, every text message. We're going to build our own case. Emma started taking pictures while I continued searching. In the back of the filing cabinet, I found something that made everything even worse. A folder labeled ZM Medical Records. Inside were forged documents claiming I had been treated for severe depression and anxiety. Records from doctors I had never seen, medications I had never taken, therapy sessions that never happened. Robert had created an entire fake medical history to support his claim that I was mentally unfit to be a mother. Emma, stop taking pictures and come here. She looked at the forged medical records with the same serious expression she wore when solving difficult problems at school. These are fake, right? You never went to Dr. Harrison for depression treatment. They're completely fake. But if a judge saw these without knowing the truth, they might believe Daddy that you're crazy and give him custody of me. Emma nodded grimly. That's really smart in a horrible way. Your father is many things, but he's not stupid. Emma went back to photographing documents while I tried to process everything we had discovered. Robert hadn't just been planning to leave me. He had been methodically destroying my reputation, stealing our assets, and preparing to take Emma away to start fresh with someone else. But he had also created a paper trail of his own crimes. The forged medical records, the hidden assets, the systematic theft from our joint accounts, it was all documented in his own meticulous files. I think we have enough, Emma announced after an hour of photography. Want to see something cool I found? She showed me her tablet. She had organized all the photos into folders: financial fraud, forged documents, custody planning, and other woman evidence. Emma, you're incredible. I learned organization from Daddy, she said with dark humor. He always says everything should have a proper place and label. I laughed despite everything. Well, he definitely taught you well. Emma looked around the office one more time. Mom, are you scared? Terrified, I admitted. But also angry. And anger is better than fear because angry people fight back. Emma nodded solemnly. What do we do next? I looked at my daughter, this brave little girl who had been protecting me while I was too broken down to protect myself. Next, we find someone who can help us make sure your father's plans never work. Like a lawyer? Like a lawyer. And maybe the police too, depending on how serious his crimes are. Emma grinned, and for the first time in months, it was a smile with real joy in it. I can't wait to see Daddy's face when he realizes we know everything. Neither could I. Monday morning, I dropped Emma off at school and drove straight to the law office Grace had recommended. Grace was my best friend from college, the only person who had seen through Robert's charm from the beginning. "Zoe, I've been waiting for this call for years," she had said when I finally told her everything. "Robert's been controlling you for so long, I was starting to think you'd never wake up." The law office was in a sleek downtown building, all glass and steel that made me feel small. But when I met Angela Rodriguez, the divorce attorney Grace had found, I immediately felt less alone. "Mrs. Thompson, I've reviewed the materials you emailed me yesterday." Angela was a small woman with sharp eyes and a presence that filled the room. "What you've discovered is quite serious. We're not just talking about divorce here, we're talking about fraud, forgery, and potentially criminal activity." I had sent Emma's photographs ahead of our meeting, organized in the same folders she had created. Looking at them displayed on Angela's computer screen made everything feel more real and more terrifying. "Can he really take Emma away from me?" I asked. "Not if we do this right. The forged medical records alone could land him in serious legal trouble. But we need to be very careful about how we proceed." Angela leaned forward. "Tell me about your daughter. How is she handling all of this?" "Better than I am, honestly. She's been recording his verbal abuse for months without telling me. She's the one who found most of this evidence." Angela's eyebrows rose. "She recorded him without his knowledge?" "Yes. Is that a problem?" "Actually, it might be our strongest evidence. In this state, one-party consent laws mean Emma's recordings are completely legal. And children's testimony about abuse carries significant weight in custody cases." Relief flooded through me. "So the recordings can be used in court?" "Absolutely. In fact, I'd like to meet Emma if you're comfortable with that. We'll need her testimony, and I want to make sure she's prepared for what might happen." Angela walked me through the legal process. First, we would file for divorce with a request for emergency temporary custody. The evidence of Robert's financial fraud would support a claim for the majority of our assets. The forged medical records and his abuse would ensure I kept custody of Emma. "There's something else we should consider," Angela said. "Some of what your husband has done may be criminal. The forged medical records, the systematic theft of marital assets, the fraud, these could result in criminal charges." "You mean he could go to jail?" "It's possible. I have a contact at the DA's office who specializes in financial crimes. With your permission, I'd like to show him these documents." I thought about Robert's face at Thanksgiving dinner, the cruelty in his voice, the years of manipulation and control. "Yes. I want him to face consequences for everything he's done." After the lawyer meeting, I picked up Emma from school and took her for ice cream. She had been unusually quiet all day, according to her teacher, and I could see the weight of our situation on her young shoulders. "How did the lawyer meeting go?" Emma asked, picking at her vanilla cone. "Good. She thinks we have a strong case. But Emma, she wants to meet you. Is that okay?" Emma nodded. "Will I have to talk to a judge?" "Maybe. Would you be scared?" Emma considered this seriously. "A little. But if it means keeping us together and making Daddy stop being mean, then I can be brave." My heart nearly broke. "You shouldn't have to be brave about this, sweetie. This is grown-up stuff. But I'm part of this family too. And if I can help stop Daddy from hurting us, then I want to help." That evening, Angela called with news. "I spoke with Detective Miller at the DA's office. He's very interested in your case. Can you meet with him tomorrow?" "What kind of detective?" "Financial crimes and domestic abuse. Based on the evidence you provided, he thinks there's enough for criminal charges. But he wants to interview you and Emma before proceeding." After I hung up, Emma looked at me expectantly. "Police? A detective who handles cases like ours. He wants to talk to us tomorrow." Emma nodded calmly. "Good. Daddy always says people who break the law should face consequences." The next afternoon, Detective Miller met us at Angela's office. He was a kind-faced man in his 50s who immediately put Emma at ease by asking about school and her favorite subjects before discussing the case. "Emma, I understand you've been recording your father. That was very smart of you." Detective Miller's voice was gentle. "Can you tell me why you decided to do that?" Emma sat up straighter. "Because he was hurting my mom's feelings all the time and she was getting sadder and sadder. I thought if someone heard how mean he was being, they could make him stop." "Were you scared when you were recording?" "Yes. But I was more scared of what would happen to Mom if I didn't do something." Detective Miller looked at me with something that might have been admiration. "You've raised a very brave daughter." "She's braver than I've been." "Mrs. Thompson, abuse victims often feel like they haven't been brave enough. But leaving an abusive situation takes tremendous courage. You're doing that now." Detective Miller reviewed the evidence with us. asking detailed questions about the forged medical records and the hidden financial accounts. Emma answered every question clearly and honestly. "Based on what I've seen here, I believe we have grounds for criminal charges," Detective Miller said finally. "Financial fraud, forgery of medical documents, and potentially more depending on what else we discover." "What happens next?" I asked. "I'll need to investigate further, gather additional evidence, and then present the case to the prosecutor. In the meantime, I strongly recommend you file for that emergency restraining order Angela mentioned." Angela nodded. "We'll file tomorrow. Zoe, I want you and Emma to stay somewhere else tonight. Do you have somewhere safe to go?" Grace said we could stay with her family. "Good. Pack some things for both of you and don't tell Robert where you're going." That evening, while Emma packed her favorite clothes and books, I stood in our bedroom looking at the life I was about to leave behind. The king-size bed where Robert had told me I was worthless. The dresser where he kept cufflinks I had given him for birthdays when I still believed our marriage could be saved. "Mom?" Emma appeared in the doorway with her backpack. "Are you sad about leaving?" I thought about her question. Was I sad? Or was I finally, after years of being diminished and controlled, feeling something that might actually be hope? "No, sweetie. I think I'm relieved." Emma smiled. "Me too. Grace's house is going to be fun." As we loaded our car with enough clothes for a week, I realized Emma was right. For the first time in years, we were going somewhere we would be welcomed, valued, and safe. Robert's carefully laid plans were about to crumble, and we were going to be the ones holding the sledgehammer. Robert came home Sunday night in a rage. Emma and I were still at Grace's house, but our neighbors called to tell me about the shouting and the sound of things being thrown. According to Mrs. Patterson next door, Robert had discovered we were gone and had been calling my name throughout the empty house. "He's been drinking," Grace observed, looking out her kitchen window toward the street. "His car's been sitting in your driveway with the engine running for 10 minutes. Emma was doing homework at Grace's dining table, but I could see her listening to every word. "Should I call Detective Miller?" "Let's see what happens first," Grace said. "But keep your phone ready." The decision was made for us when Robert's car suddenly screeched out of our driveway and pulled up in front of Grace's house. Emma looked up from her math homework as we heard his car door slam. "He found us," Emma said quietly. The doorbell rang, followed immediately by pounding on the door. "Zoe, I know you're in there. Get out here right now." Grace looked at me. "I'm calling the police." "Wait," I said, surprising myself. "I want to face him. I want him to know that I know everything." "Mom?" Emma stood up. "Are you sure?" I looked at my daughter, this brave girl who had been protecting me while I lived in fear. It was time for me to protect her for a change. "I'm sure. But you stay inside with Grace." I opened the front door to find Robert standing on the porch, his hair disheveled and his clothes wrinkled. He looked like he hadn't slept, and I could smell alcohol from 3 feet away. "There you are." His voice was dangerous, controlled in the way that usually meant an explosion was coming. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "I'm protecting my daughter." Robert's eyes narrowed. "Your daughter?" "Emma is my daughter too, and I want her home. Now." "She is home. She's safe, which is more than I can say for our house when you're in one of your moods." Robert stepped closer, and I could see the fury building in his face. "You have no right to take her without telling me. No right to disappear like some kind of criminal." "Criminal?" I almost laughed. "That's rich, Robert. Really rich." Something in my tone must have warned him because his expression shifted slightly. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I know about Stephanie." Robert's face went completely still. For just a moment, the mask slipped and I saw real fear in his eyes. Then the anger returned, stronger than before. "I don't know what you think you know, but I know about the divorce papers you've already prepared. I know about the boarding school applications for Emma. I know about the bank accounts you've been hiding money in." I was surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "I know about everything, Robert. You went through my office." It wasn't a question. His hands were clenched into fists now. "Your unlocked office. With all your perfectly organized evidence of fraud and forgery." Robert's face went white. "Fraud?" The fake medical records were a nice touch. Dr. Harrison's office was very confused when I called to ask about my supposed depression treatment. Behind me, I could hear Grace on the phone with the police, speaking in low, urgent tones. Robert heard it too, and his whole demeanor changed. "Zoe, you don't understand. Everything I've done has been for our family, for Emma's future. You're sick, you need help, and I've been trying to—" "Stop." The word came out harder than I intended. "Just stop lying. I have recordings, Robert. Hours of recordings of you tearing me down, threatening me, planning to destroy my life. Recordings? His voice cracked slightly. That's when Emma appeared in the doorway behind me, her tablet in her hands. Hi, Daddy. Robert's entire body went rigid. Emma, sweetheart, come to Daddy. We're going home right now. No, thank you, Emma said politely, as if she was declining a second helping of vegetables. I'm staying with Mom. Emma, you don't understand what's happening here. Your mother is sick and she's trying to poison your mind against me. Emma tilted her head, studying her father with those intelligent eyes. Daddy, do you remember what you said to Mom at Thanksgiving dinner? Emma, that's not. You called her worthless. You said she was nothing. You said I would be better off without her. Emma's voice was calm, matter of fact. Do you remember saying those things? Robert looked between Emma and me, and I could see him trying to calculate how much damage had been done. Sometimes adults say things they don't mean when they're upset. But you did mean it, didn't you, Daddy? Emma held up her tablet. Because you said the same things the night before. And the week before that. And lots of other times when you thought I was asleep. The color drained completely from Robert's face. Emma, what are you talking about? Emma looked directly at her father, and when she spoke, her voice carried a weight that no 9-year-old should have to bear. I have recordings of everything. Those 5 words hung in the air like a death sentence. Robert stared at Emma, then at the tablet in her hands, then back at Emma. I watched as the full implications hit him. You recorded me? For 3 months, Emma said simply. Every time you were mean to Mom. Every time you made her cry. Every time you said things about making her go away. Robert's mouth opened and closed several times without sound. I had never seen him speechless before, had never seen him look genuinely afraid. Emma, sweetheart, you don't understand. I understand that you were planning to divorce Mom and send me to boarding school so you could marry Stephanie. Emma's voice was still unnaturally calm. I understand that you made fake papers saying Mom was crazy. I understand that you've been stealing money from our family. Each word hit Robert like a physical blow. His face went from white to gray, and he had to grab the porch railing to steady himself. How much do you know? He whispered. Everything, I answered for Emma. We know everything, Robert. And so does my lawyer. And so does Detective Miller from the DA's office. The sound of sirens was getting closer. Robert heard them too, and panic flashed across his face. Zoe, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling, we can fix our marriage. You don't want to destroy Emma's family over some misunderstanding. You already destroyed Emma's family, I said quietly. You destroyed it the first time you called me worthless in front of our daughter. You destroyed it when you decided I was disposable and started planning your new life with someone else. 2 police cars pulled up to the curb. Robert looked at them, then back at us, desperation replacing the control he usually wore like armor. Emma, please. You're my little girl. You don't want to see Daddy get in trouble, do you? Emma looked at her father for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her words were careful and precise. I don't want you to get in trouble, Daddy. But I also don't want you to hurt Mom anymore. And I don't want you to take me away from her. The officers were walking up the driveway now. Robert made one last attempt to regain control. Officers, this is a family matter. My wife has taken my daughter without permission, and I just want... Mr. Thompson? The lead officer interrupted. I'm Officer Martinez. We have a few questions for you. Robert's lawyer instincts kicked in. I don't have to answer any questions without my attorney present. That's your right, sir. But we do have a warrant to search your residence based on evidence of financial fraud and document forgery. Robert's last bit of composure cracked. A warrant? Based on what evidence? Officer Martinez looked at Emma and me. Based on evidence provided by your wife and daughter, sir. I watched my husband's soon-to-be ex-husband realize that his carefully constructed plan had fallen apart. The man who had controlled every aspect of our lives for years was no longer in control of anything. Daddy? Emma's small voice cut through the tension. Are you going to say you're sorry? Robert looked at our daughter, at this brave little girl who had outsmarted him, outmaneuvered him, and exposed him. For just a moment, I thought I saw genuine remorse in his eyes. But then his face hardened again. I have nothing to apologize for. I was protecting this family. Emma nodded sadly. Okay, Daddy. I understand. But I could see in her face that she didn't understand. She understood that her father had chosen pride over love, control over family, and revenge over redemption. As the officers escorted Robert to their car for questioning, Emma slipped her hand into mine. Mom, is it over? I squeezed her hand gently. The hard part is just beginning, sweetie. But yes, I think the worst is over. Emma nodded and leaned against me as we watched Robert's car disappear down the street. I'm proud of us, she said quietly. So was I. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. I was making breakfast for Emma at Grace's house when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw a silver Mercedes in the driveway, Robert's mother's car. That's Grandma Patricia, Emma observed, looking up from her cereal. My stomach dropped. Patricia had always been polite but distant with me, clearly preferring her son's version of our marriage. I assumed she was here to demand I bring Emma home or to tell me how I was destroying their family. Grace answered the door and I heard Patricia's crisp voice asking for me. When she entered the kitchen, I braced myself for the confrontation. Zoe, we need to talk. Patricia looked older than she had at Thanksgiving dinner, more fragile somehow. She was still impeccably dressed, but there were dark circles under her eyes. Mrs. Thompson, if you're here to convince me to go back to Robert, I'm here to apologize. The words hit me like cold water. Patricia never apologized for anything, least of all anything involving her precious son. I'm sorry? Patricia sat down across from me at Grace's kitchen table, her composure cracking slightly. I said I'm here to apologize. 4 years of enabling my son's behavior. For not seeing what he was doing to you. For not speaking up when I should have. Emma stopped eating and stared at her grandmother. This was not the Patricia any of us knew. Mrs. Thompson, I don't understand. After what happened at dinner, after the police came to question Robert yesterday, I started thinking about things I had ignored. Patricia's hands were trembling slightly. Signs I had dismissed, conversations I had pretended not to hear. Grace discreetly moved to the living room, giving us privacy while staying close enough to help if needed. What kind of signs? I asked carefully. Patricia was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. Do you remember Robert's first marriage? To Jennifer. I nodded. Robert had been married briefly in his 20s, but he never talked about it beyond saying Jennifer had been unstable and couldn't handle being married to a successful man. Jennifer called me once, about 6 months before their divorce. She was crying, saying Robert was cruel to her, that he was trying to make her feel crazy. Patricia's voice was barely above a whisper. I thought she was being dramatic. I told her marriage was hard work and she needed to try harder to make my son happy. The pieces clicked into place. Robert did the same things to Jennifer that he did to me. Worse probably. Jennifer tried to tell me he was hiding money, forging documents, planning to leave her with nothing. I didn't believe her. Patricia looked up at me with tears in her eyes. She tried to warn me that Robert was dangerous, and I chose my son over the truth. Emma had stopped pretending to eat and was listening intently. What happened to Jennifer, Grandma? She lost everything in the divorce. Robert convinced the judge she was mentally unstable, just like he was trying to do with your mother. Last I heard, she moved across the country and changed her name. The room was silent except for the ticking of Grace's kitchen clock. Patricia reached into her purse and pulled out a thick envelope. These are bank statements and financial records from Robert's accounts. The ones he thought I didn't know about. Patricia's voice was steadier now. I've been the backup contact on several of his business accounts for years. When I started looking more closely, I found evidence of the money he's been hiding from you. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were statements showing hundreds of thousands of dollars in accounts I had never seen before. Money that should have been marital assets, hidden away where I couldn't access it. Why are you giving me this? Patricia was quiet for a moment. Because Emma shouldn't lose her mother the way Robert's first daughter lost hers. Robert has another daughter? Jennifer took their daughter when she fled. Robert hasn't seen her in 10 years. Patricia wiped her eyes with a tissue. I have a granddaughter I've never met because I chose to believe my son's lies over a mother's desperate attempt to protect her child. Emma reached across the table and took her grandmother's hand. Grandma, you're helping us now. That matters. Patricia squeezed Emma's hand. You're very wise for 9 years old. I've had to grow up fast. The simple honesty of Emma's statement seemed to break something inside Patricia. She started crying, then really crying in a way that seemed to release years of suppressed guilt. I'm so sorry, Zoe. I'm sorry I didn't protect you, and I'm sorry I didn't protect Jennifer. I'm sorry I raised a son who thinks women are disposable. I found myself reaching for Patricia's other hand. You can't change what Robert did. But you can help us make sure he doesn't get away with it. Patricia nodded, wiping her tears. I'll testify in court if you need me to. I'll tell them about Jennifer, about the pattern of behavior, about the hidden money. Whatever you need. Thank you, I whispered. There's something else. Patricia pulled out another document. Robert had a meeting with his lawyer yesterday morning before the police came. I know this because I pay the retainer for his legal services, and his attorney called to discuss strategy. My blood went cold. What kind of strategy? He's planning to claim that you and Emma are lying about the abuse. He wants to say you coached Emma to make false accusations because you found out about his affair and want revenge. Emma's face hardened. But we have recordings. How can he say we're lying when we have proof? Patricia looked at her granddaughter with something that might have been pride. He's going to claim the recordings were edited or taken out of context. He's going to say you're a troubled child acting out because of your mother's mental illness. But that's not true, Emma protested. Truth doesn't always matter in court, sweetheart. What matters is what you can prove and how convincing your story is. Patricia turned back to me. But with my testimony about Jennifer and the financial records I'm giving you, his strategy becomes much harder to defend. Grace reappeared in the kitchen doorway. Zoe, your lawyer is on the phone. I took the call in Grace's living room while Emma and Patricia continued talking quietly in the kitchen. Angela had news about Robert's arrest. He's been charged with financial fraud, forgery of medical documents, and document fraud, Angela reported. He made bail this morning, but there's a restraining order in place. He can't contact you or Emma directly. What about custody? The judge granted temporary full custody to you based on the evidence of abuse and Robert's criminal charges. Emma won't be forced to see him until this is resolved. Relief flooded through me. How long will that take? Depends on whether he takes a plea deal or fights the charges. But Zoe, there's something else. Detective Miller found evidence that Robert was planning to take Emma out of state next week. Fake enrollment papers, a lease on an apartment in North Carolina under an assumed name. My legs went weak. He was really going to kidnap her. It looks that way. Which actually strengthens our case significantly. Flight risk with a minor child is a very serious charge. When I returned to the kitchen, Patricia was showing Emma pictures on her phone. This is Jennifer's daughter, your half-sister. Her name is Rachel and she's about 14 now. Emma studied the photo of a girl with Robert's dark hair and her mother's kind eyes. Do you think we'll ever meet her? Maybe someday when all this is over and it's safe. Patricia looked at me. Jennifer would want to know that another woman escaped before it was too late. That another little girl didn't lose her mother to Robert's cruelty. As Patricia prepared to leave, she pulled me aside. Zoe, I know I don't have the right to ask this, but would you consider letting me stay in Emma's life? I know I failed as a mother-in-law, but I'd like to try to be a better grandmother. I looked toward the kitchen where Emma was carefully packing the financial documents Patricia had brought. That's up to Emma. Emma? I called. Grandma Patricia wants to know if you'd like her to keep visiting, even with everything that's happening with your father. Emma considered this seriously. Grandma, do you believe that Daddy was mean to Mom? Yes, I do. And you believe that we're telling the truth about everything? Completely. Emma nodded. Then yes, I'd like you to keep visiting. Mom and I are going to need all the family we can get. Patricia's smile was the first genuine expression I had ever seen on her face. Thank you, Emma. I won't let you down again. After Patricia left, Emma and I sat on Grace's couch reviewing everything that had happened. In less than a week, our entire world had changed. Mom, do you think Daddy will go to jail? I don't know, sweetie. Maybe. Emma was quiet for a moment. I hope he does. Not because I want him to be hurt, but because I want him to understand that what he did was really wrong. I pulled my daughter closer. You know what I'm most proud of? What? That through all of this you never stopped being kind. Even to Daddy, even when he was scary and mean, you never became cruel like him. Emma leaned against me. I learned that from you, Mom. You were never mean to him either, even when he deserved it. As we sat there together, safe in Grace's house with evidence that would protect us and allies who would support us, I realized something important. Robert had spent years trying to break me down, trying to make me believe I was worthless and alone. But he had been wrong about both things. I wasn't worthless, I was raising an incredible daughter who was braver than I had ever been. And I wasn't alone, I had people who cared about us and would fight for us. Robert's plan to destroy us had failed. And now it was time to build something better from the pieces. 2 days later, while Emma was at school, I was at Grace's house organizing all our evidence when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw a woman I didn't recognize, young, blonde, expensively dressed, and clearly upset. Grace opened the door cautiously. Can I help you? I'm looking for Zoe Thompson. I'm Stephanie Morrison. My blood went cold. Robert's affair partner was standing on Grace's doorstep. "I'm Zoe," I said, stepping into view. "What do you want?" Stephanie looked like she had been crying. Her makeup was smeared, and her usually perfect hair was disheveled. "I need to talk to you. Please." "It's about Robert." Grace looked at me questioningly. I nodded. "Let her in." Stephanie sat down in Grace's living room, clutching her purse like a lifeline. "I know what you must think of me, and you have every right to hate me. But there are things you need to know about Robert that I just found out." "Such as?" Stephanie took a shaky breath. "I thought I knew him. I thought you were the problem in his marriage, that you were the reason he was so unhappy. He told me you were mentally ill, that you were abusive to Emma, that you were trying to destroy his career. Despite everything, I felt a stab of pain. And you believed him. He was so convincing. He showed me medical records of your supposed treatment for severe depression. He played me recordings of phone calls where you sounded completely unstable." Stephanie's voice was getting smaller. "I thought I was helping him escape an abusive relationship." "What recordings?" I asked sharply. "Conversations where you were screaming at him, threatening to hurt yourself, saying horrible things about Emma." Stephanie looked confused. "But then yesterday, after he was arrested, I started really listening to those recordings. And I realized they were edited." Grace leaned forward. "Edited how?" "Your voice was spliced together from different conversations. Parts were taken out of context, rearranged to make you sound crazy. Robert had manipulated the audio to create fake evidence of your instability." I felt sick. "He made fake recordings of me?" "Professional quality editing. He must have recorded hundreds of your phone conversations over the years and then pieced together the worst moments to create something that sounded like you having a breakdown. The manipulation was so thorough, so calculated, that it took my breath away." "Why are you telling me this?" Stephanie was crying now. "Because I found out I'm not the first." "What do you mean?" "Last night, I got a call from a woman named Jennifer Walsh. She said she used to be married to Robert, and she had tracked me down to warn me." Stephanie wiped her eyes. "She told me everything, Zoe. About how Robert destroyed her life, took her daughter away, left her with nothing. And she told me about the other women." "Other women?" "After Jennifer, there were at least 3 other serious relationships. Robert would find successful, independent women, isolate them from their friends and family, convince them they were crazy, and then discard them when he found someone new." Stephanie's voice was hollow. "Jennifer called it his pattern." Grace brought Stephanie a box of tissues. "What made you realize the truth?" "Jennifer knew details about Robert that only someone who had lived with him would know. She knew about his fake medical records trick, about how he hides money, about how he uses children as weapons against their mothers." Stephanie blew her nose. "And then she told me about the investigation." "Investigation?" "Jennifer has been working with a private investigator for years, documenting Robert's pattern of abuse and fraud. She's been trying to build a case that would hold up in court." Stephanie pulled out a thick folder. "She asked me to give you this." Inside the folder were photographs, financial documents, and sworn statements from 4 different women, all telling similar stories of manipulation, financial abuse, and systematic destruction of their reputations. "My God," Grace breathed, looking over my shoulder at the documents. "Jennifer said Robert is a serial predator," Stephanie continued. "He targets women with money or successful careers, manipulates them into marriage or serious relationships, and then systematically steals their assets while destroying their credibility." I thought about Patricia's revelation about Robert's first marriage, about the hidden bank accounts, about the forged medical records. It's been his entire adult life. Jennifer's daughter is 16 now. She hasn't seen her father since she was 6, but she still has nightmares about him. Stephanie's voice broke. "When Jennifer heard about Emma, about what Robert was planning to do to your family, she knew she had to act." "Where is Jennifer now?" "Living under a different name in Oregon. She's built a good life for herself and her daughter, but she's never stopped watching Robert, never stopped gathering evidence. She's been waiting for him to make a mistake big enough that the authorities would finally take him seriously." Grace was studying the documents. "This is enough evidence to put Robert away for years. Jennifer wants to testify at his trial. So do 2 of the other women." Stephanie looked directly at me. "They want to make sure he never does this to another family." I felt overwhelmed by the scope of Robert's deception. "Stephanie, why did you come forward? You could have just ended the relationship quietly." "Because I have a daughter too. She's 12, and she lives with her father in another state. When Jennifer told me what Robert does to children, how he uses them as weapons and turns them against their mothers." Stephanie's voice trailed off. I realized I was about to become an accessory to child abuse. What do you mean? Robert was planning to marry me as soon as your divorce was final. He was going to bring Emma to live with us, and he had already started telling me how troubled she was, how she needed firm discipline to overcome the damage you had done to her. Stephanie shuddered. I thought he was being a concerned father. Now I realize he was setting up Emma to be his next victim. The thought of Emma being subjected to Robert's manipulation without me there to protect her made me physically ill. There's something else, Stephanie said quietly. Robert has been planning this for over a year. He specifically targeted me because I have money and no family nearby. He needed someone financially stable who could help him raise Emma after he got rid of you. Got rid of me? He told me you would probably have a breakdown after losing custody of Emma. He said most women in your situation either disappear entirely or... Stephanie couldn't finish the sentence. Or what? Or they hurt themselves. He said it was common for women to become suicidal when they lose everything. Stephanie's eyes were wide with horror. I think he was planning for you to die, Zoe. I think that was his ultimate goal. The room went completely silent. Grace reached for my hand and I could see the fear in her eyes. He was going to kill me, I whispered. Not directly. But he was setting up a situation where you might kill yourself. And if that happened, he would get sympathy as the grieving widower, full custody of Emma, and access to any life insurance money. I thought about all the times Robert had mentioned my life insurance policy, how he had increased the coverage just last year. I thought about the forged medical records showing severe depression, the systematic isolation from friends and family, the financial devastation he had planned. It would have looked like a tragic suicide, I said slowly. A mentally ill woman who lost her child and had nothing left to live for. Stephanie nodded miserably. And Emma would have grown up thinking her mother abandoned her. Robert would have made sure of that. Grace stood up abruptly. We need to call Detective Miller right now. While Grace made the call, Stephanie turned to me. Zoe, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I helped him plan to destroy your life because I believed his lies. But I want to make this right. How? I'm going to testify against him. I'm going to tell the court about the fake recordings, about his long-term planning, about everything he told me regarding his intentions toward you and Emma. Stephanie's voice was firm now. And I'm going to make sure the other women know they have support if they want to come forward. Detective Miller arrived within an hour, and Stephanie spent the rest of the afternoon giving her statement. By evening, the case against Robert had expanded from simple financial fraud to conspiracy, attempted kidnapping, and potentially attempted murder. When Emma came home from school, I had to decide how much to tell her about Stephanie's revelations. Mom, you look scared, Emma observed. Did something bad happen? I sat down beside her. Something scary but also something good. We learned that your father's crimes were much worse than we thought, but we also learned that there are other people who can help make sure he never hurts anyone again. Emma processed this with her usual serious expression. Are we safer now or in more danger? Safer. Much safer. Because now the police understand how dangerous your father really is. Emma nodded. Good. I was worried he might try to take me away again. That's never going to happen, sweetie. I promise. That night, as Emma slept peacefully in Grace's guest room, I lay awake thinking about how close we had come to Robert's ultimate plan succeeding. If Emma hadn't been brave enough to record his abuse, if we hadn't found his evidence, if Stephanie hadn't realized the truth, but we had found the truth. And now Robert's decades-long pattern of destroying women's lives was finally going to be exposed. The man who had convinced me I was worthless was about to discover that his own worth was less than nothing. Justice, I realized, sometimes comes from the most unexpected places. Robert's arrest came on a Tuesday morning, just as Emma was finishing her breakfast before school. We heard the sirens first, then saw the police cars pulling up to our house across the street. Through Grace's front window, we watched as Detective Miller and 3 other officers walked up to our front door. Is that for Daddy? Emma asked, peering through the curtains. I think so, sweetie. My phone rang. It was Detective Miller. Mrs. Thompson, we have a warrant for Robert's arrest on additional charges. Can you confirm he's at the residence? I can see his car in the driveway, I replied, watching the scene unfold. What are the charges? Conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted kidnapping, child endangerment, and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. Based on Stephanie Morrison's testimony and the evidence from the other victims, the DA decided to move forward with the most serious charges. Through the window, I saw Robert answer the door in his bathrobe, clearly having just woken up. Even from across the street, I could see his shock when Detective Miller showed him the warrant. "Mom, look at Daddy's face," Emma said quietly. Robert's expression had gone from confused to panicked in seconds. He was gesturing wildly, probably trying to convince the officers this was all a misunderstanding. But Detective Miller was calmly reading him his rights while another officer moved to search the house. "Emma, how do you feel watching this?" I asked. Emma was quiet for a long moment, studying her father's face as he was handcuffed. Sad but also relieved. "Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense. I love Daddy, but I'm glad he can't hurt us anymore." Emma turned away from the window. "Can we go to school now? I have a math test today and I don't want to be late." The resilience of children never ceased to amaze me. While I was watching my husband get arrested and feeling like my whole world was crumbling and rebuilding simultaneously, Emma was worried about a math test. "Of course, sweetie. Let's go." By the time we returned from dropping Emma at school, Robert's arrest was all over the local news. Grace had recorded the news segment and we watched it together over coffee. Local real estate developer Robert Thompson was arrested this morning on charges including fraud, conspiracy, and attempted kidnapping, the reporter announced. Thompson is accused of systematically defrauding multiple romantic partners over a 15-year period, with losses estimated in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The news report included interviews with Detective Miller and the prosecutor, both speaking about the sophisticated pattern of financial and emotional abuse that Robert had perpetrated against multiple victims across several states. "This case represents a new understanding of domestic abuse," the prosecutor stated. "The defendant didn't just steal money, he systematically destroyed women's reputations, relationships, and sense of reality in order to control and exploit them." Grace muted the television. "How does it feel to see it on the news?" "Surreal. For so long, Robert convinced me that I was crazy, that I was imagining his abuse, that no one would believe me." I gestured at the TV. "Now it's being talked about as fact on the evening news." My phone had been ringing all morning, reporters wanting interviews, neighbors expressing shock, and old friends who had distanced themselves from me during my marriage now calling to offer support. Angela called with an update on the legal proceedings. Robert's bail has been set at $200,000. His mother has posted it, but there are strict conditions. He can't leave the state, can't contact you or Emma, and can't access any of the accounts that are part of the fraud investigation. What happens next? His arraignment is next week. Based on the evidence we have, I expect him to be offered a plea deal. If he doesn't take it, this goes to trial, and with 4 victims willing to testify plus all the documentary evidence, he's looking at serious prison time. That afternoon, Patricia called to check on us. She sounded exhausted. "I posted Robert's bail because he's still my son, but I want you to know that I don't support what he's done," she said. "I've also hired him an attorney and told him his best option is to take whatever plea deal they offer." "How is he handling all this?" "Badly. He's still claiming you and Emma are lying, that this is all an elaborate revenge plot because you found out about his affair." Patricia's voice was heavy with disappointment. "Even with all the evidence, even with other victims coming forward, he refuses to admit he's done anything wrong." "What about the financial accounts? Can I access our joint assets now?" "The court has frozen everything until the criminal case is resolved, but your lawyer should be able to get you emergency support payments. I'm also prepared to help with expenses if you need it." The offer surprised me. "Patricia, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. I have 2 granddaughters I've never been able to protect because of my son's actions. The least I can do is make sure Emma doesn't suffer financially while this gets sorted out." 2 weeks later, Robert's plea hearing arrived. Emma had asked to stay home from school to hear the outcome, and I decided she was old enough to understand what was happening. Angela called just after noon. "He took the plea deal." "What does that mean?" 5 years in federal prison for the financial crimes, plus 3 years for the conspiracy charges. He'll serve at least 4 years before he's eligible for parole. Angela's voice carried satisfaction. "He also has to pay full restitution to all victims and surrender any claim to marital assets." "And custody?" "He's voluntarily terminating his parental rights. Emma will never be forced to see him again." I felt like I could breathe freely for the first time in years. "It's really over?" "The criminal case is over. We still have to finalize the divorce and work out the financial settlement, but yes, Zoe, it's over." When Emma came home from school, I told her about her father's plea agreement. "So Daddy admitted he did bad things?" she asked. "Yes. He admitted to stealing money and lying about a lot of things." "And he's going to jail?" "Yes, for several years." Emma nodded thoughtfully. Will he try to take me away when he gets out? No, sweetie. He signed papers saying he won't try to get custody of you. Legally, it will be just you and me from now on. Emma was quiet for a few minutes, processing this information. Mom, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think Daddy will ever say he's sorry? Really sorry, not just sorry he got caught. The question broke my heart. I don't know, Emma. I hope so for his sake. But whether he apologizes or not doesn't change anything for us. I know. I just think it would be nice if he understood how much he hurt us. That evening, Grace made a special dinner to celebrate what she called Freedom Day. As we sat around her dining table, the same table where we had spent so many evenings planning our legal strategy, one realized that what had started as the worst day of my life at that Thanksgiving dinner had led to the best outcome I could have imagined. Mom, Emma said as we were cleaning up dishes, I want to write a letter to Jennifer's daughter. Rachel? Why? Because she went through the same thing I did, but she didn't have recordings to help her mom. I want her to know that her daddy got in trouble for the bad things he did, and that someone believed her mom was telling the truth. I hugged my daughter tightly. Even in the midst of our own trauma and recovery, Emma was thinking about how to help another child who had suffered because of Robert's actions. I think that's a beautiful idea, sweetie. As I tucked Emma into bed that night in Grace's guest room, she looked up at me with those serious eyes that had seemed too much for a 9-year-old. Mom, are you happy now? I considered the question carefully. I'm relieved and I'm proud of us and I'm hopeful about our future. Happy might take a little more time. Emma nodded. That makes sense. But we're safe now, right? We're completely safe now. Good. Then happy will come later. As I turned off the light and headed toward my own room, I heard Emma's voice one more time in the darkness. Mom? I think we won. She was right. We had won. Not just the legal battle, but something much more important. We had won back our dignity, our safety, and our future. Robert had tried to destroy us, but instead, his own actions had destroyed him. Justice had finally arrived, and it looked exactly like a 9-year-old girl with a tablet full of truth. 6 weeks after Robert's sentencing, the ripple effects of our case were still spreading. Detective Miller called to update me on the investigation that had grown far beyond our family. We've identified 7 additional victims spanning the last 20 years, he reported. Robert's pattern goes back much further than we initially thought. The scope of Robert's deception was staggering. Besides Jennifer and the other women Stephanie had told us about, investigators had found evidence of fraud against a college girlfriend, 2 business partners, and even an elderly neighbor who had trusted Robert to handle her investments. How much money are we talking about? I asked. Conservative estimate? Over $2 million in stolen assets, plus immeasurable psychological damage. Detective Miller's voice was grim. Your husband was essentially running a decades-long con game, targeting vulnerable women and stealing their financial security. Emma was at school, which was good because some of the details were too dark for her to hear. The investigators had discovered that Robert had been researching his victims carefully, choosing women who were isolated, financially successful, and emotionally vulnerable. There's something else you should know, Detective Miller continued. We found evidence that Robert was planning to take out additional life insurance policies on you, with himself as the beneficiary. My blood went cold. How much? $5 million. The applications were already submitted, just waiting for your signature. According to his communications with Stephanie, he was planning to tell you it was for Emma's college fund. The manipulation was so thorough it took my breath away. He really was planning to kill me. Not directly, but the evidence suggests he was creating conditions that might lead to your suicide. The fake medical records, the financial devastation, the loss of your child, it would have looked like a tragic but understandable breakdown. That afternoon, I picked Emma up from school and took her for ice cream. She had been unusually quiet lately, and I suspected she was processing everything that had happened in her own way. Mom, can I ask you something that might be weird? Emma said, stirring her chocolate ice cream thoughtfully. Of course. Do you think Daddy loved me? Really loved me, not just wanted to own me? The question hit me hard. Oh, Emma. That's not weird at all. That's a really important question. Emma looked up at me with those wise eyes. Because if he loved me, how could he plan to take me away from you? How could he want to hurt the person I love most? I chose my words carefully. I think your father loved the idea of you. He loved having a daughter who was smart and accomplished because it made him look good. But real love means wanting what's best for the person you love, even if it's not what you want. So he didn't really love me. I think he loved you as much as he was capable of loving anyone. But your father has something wrong inside him that makes it hard for him to put other people's needs before his own wants. Emma nodded slowly. That's sad for him. It is sad for him. And it's why he's in prison now, and why he'll probably be alone for the rest of his life. I feel sorry for him sometimes, Emma admitted. But I don't miss him. Is that bad? It's not bad at all, sweetie. You can feel sorry for someone who's made terrible choices without wanting them in your life. That evening, Angela called with the final details of our divorce settlement. With Robert's criminal conviction, the financial aspects had been resolved quickly. You're getting the house, Emma's college fund, and half of all legitimate marital assets, Angela reported. Plus restitution for the money he stole, which should be substantial once they liquidate his hidden accounts. What about his business? Being sold to pay back his victims. You'll receive a significant portion of those proceeds as well. Angela's voice carried satisfaction. Financially, you and Emma will be very comfortable. And custody is completely resolved? Robert has no parental rights whatsoever. He cannot contact Emma, attend her school events, or make any decisions about her welfare. For all legal purposes, you are Emma's only parent. After I hung up, I found Emma in the living room doing homework. She looked up as I sat down beside her. Was that about the divorce stuff? Yes. It's all finished now. The house is ours, you'll have money for college, and your father can never try to take you away from me. Emma put down her pencil. So we can go home? We had been staying with Grace for almost 2 months, and while her family had been incredibly generous, I knew Emma missed her own room, her own space. If you want to, how would you feel about living in the house again? Emma considered this seriously. Will it feel different now that Daddy's gone? I think it will feel much more peaceful. Then yes, I want to go home. But Mom? What, sweetie? Can we redecorate Daddy's office? Maybe make it into something happier? I smiled. What did you have in mind? An art studio. For both of us. Somewhere we can create beautiful things instead of hiding scary things. The wisdom of my 9-year-old daughter never ceased to amaze me. I think that's a perfect idea. 2 weeks later we moved back into our house. Emma was right, it felt completely different. The tension that had permeated every room was gone, replaced by a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. We started with Robert's office, removing his imposing desk and filing cabinets, painting the walls a sunny yellow, and setting up easels and art supplies. Within days, the room that had been the center of Robert's criminal planning became a space of creativity and joy. Look what I made, Emma said one afternoon, showing me a painting of our house with bright flowers in the yard and 2 stick figures, a mother and daughter holding hands in front of it. It's beautiful, Emma. I'm going to make one for Rachel too. So she can see that sometimes houses can be happy again after bad daddies leave. That evening, as I was cleaning up our art supplies, Emma appeared in the doorway with her tablet. Mom, I want to show you something. She had been working on a video project for the past few weeks, and I hadn't seen the final result. It's called, How to Be Brave When Someone You Love Is Being Hurt, Emma explained as she started the video. On the screen, Emma's face appeared, serious but confident. Hi. My name is Emma and I'm 9 years old. I made this video for other kids who might be watching someone they love get hurt by someone else they love. The video continued with Emma explaining, in age-appropriate terms, how she had recognized that her father was hurting her mother, how she had decided to gather evidence, and how she had found the courage to stand up for what was right. The most important thing to remember, video Emma said, is that it's never the kid's fault when adults do bad things. And it's never the mom's fault either, even if the bad person tries to say it is. I watched through tears as my daughter shared her story with wisdom and compassion that seemed impossible for someone so young. Sometimes being brave isn't about fighting or being loud, Emma continued. Sometimes being brave is about paying attention, gathering evidence, and waiting for the right moment to speak up. And sometimes being brave is about protecting someone even when you're scared. The video ended with Emma holding up a drawing of a house with 2 stick figures. This is me and my mom now. We're safe and we're happy, and the person who was hurting us can't hurt us anymore. If you're watching this because someone you love is being hurt, just remember there are people who will help you if you ask. You just have to be brave enough to tell the truth. I pulled Emma into a hug. That's incredible, sweetie. What are you going to do with it? I want to put it online so other kids can see it. Detective Miller said there are lots of families like ours, and maybe my video could help them. Are you sure you want to share your story with the world? Emma nodded firmly. Daddy tried to make us disappear, but we didn't disappear. We won. And if our story can help other people win too, then I want to share it. That night, after Emma was asleep, I sat in our new art studio looking at all the paintings and drawings we had created together. Bright, hopeful images of our life moving forward. Evidence of healing and growth and possibility. On the wall, Emma had hung a photo of the two of us taken the day Robert was sentenced. We were standing on the courthouse steps, holding hands, smiling with relief and hope. Next to it, she had written in her careful 9-year-old handwriting, "The truth wins." She was right. The truth had won. Robert's elaborate lies and manipulations had crumbled when faced with simple, honest evidence of his actions. His attempt to destroy us had instead revealed his own destruction. But more than that, we had won something Robert never understood. We had won back our voices, our strength, and our future. We had proven that love is stronger than control, that truth is more powerful than manipulation, and that sometimes the smallest person in the room can be the bravest. As I turned off the lights in our happy, peaceful house, I realized that Robert had been wrong about everything. I wasn't worthless, I was a mother raising a daughter who would change the world. We weren't weak, we were stronger than he had ever been. And we weren't alone, we had each other, and that was everything. 6 months after Robert's sentencing, Emma and I had built a life that felt completely our own. The house was filled with laughter, art projects, and the kind of peaceful routine that I had forgotten was possible. Emma's video had been viewed over 1 million times and had prompted dozens of families to seek help for domestic abuse situations. "Mom, someone wants to interview us for a magazine," Emma announced one morning, reading through emails on her tablet. Since the video went viral, she had become something of an advocate for children in abusive situations, always with my supervision and approval. "What kind of magazine?" "Family Circle. They want to write about how families can rebuild after domestic abuse." Emma looked up at me. "Should we do it? What do you think?" Emma considered this seriously. "I think yes. But only if we can talk about how good our life is now, not just about the bad stuff that happened." That afternoon, while Emma was at soccer practice, I met Grace for coffee to catch up. She had been my anchor through everything, and our friendship had deepened beyond anything I could have imagined. "You look happy," Grace observed, studying my face across the coffee shop table. "I feel happy. Really happy for the first time in years." "Any particular reason for the glow?" I felt my cheeks warm. "Maybe." Grace grinned. "Tell me everything." 2 weeks earlier, I had run into Dr. James Mitchell at Emma's school during a parent-teacher conference. James was a single father whose daughter was in Emma's class, and we had talked briefly at a few school events. He was kind, funny, and treated Emma with the same respect he showed adults. "We've been on 3 dates," I admitted. "Coffee, dinner, and a trip to the art museum with both girls." And it's nice to be with someone who asks about my day because he actually wants to know the answer, not because he's looking for ways to criticize me. Grace reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "I'm so happy for you, Zoe. You deserve someone who sees how amazing you are." It's early still, but Emma likes him. And his daughter Sophie is sweet. They've become good friends. "How does Emma feel about you dating?" She said, and I quote, "Mom, you smile differently when Dr. Mitchell is around, and I like your happy smile better than your worried smile." That evening, James came over for dinner, our first time cooking together. Emma and Sophie had planned the entire menu, which consisted of spaghetti, garlic bread, and a chocolate cake they had made themselves. "Emma told me about your art studio," James said as we cleaned up dishes while the girls worked on homework at the kitchen table. "Could I see it?" I led him upstairs to the room that had once been Robert's office. The transformation was complete now, bright walls covered with Emma's artwork and my own paintings, easels positioned to catch the best light, shelves lined with art supplies and inspiration books. "This is incredible," James said, studying Emma's latest painting, a portrait of our family that included Grace, Patricia, and even Detective Miller. "Emma's really talented. She gets it from her mom," Emma called from downstairs, making us both laugh. James picked up one of my paintings, a landscape of the lake where Emma and I had taken our first vacation as a family of 2. "You're both incredibly creative. This is beautiful, Zoe." The way he said my name, with genuine appreciation and warmth, reminded me how different it felt to be seen and valued rather than criticized and controlled. "Thank you. Painting has been part of my healing process." Emma told Sophie that art helped you both process everything that happened. "That's remarkable. Emma's the remarkable one. She saved us both." James turned to study a series of paintings I had done showing our journey from fear to freedom. "You saved each other. That's what families do." That night, after James and Sophie had gone home and Emma was in bed, I sat in the art studio working on a new painting. This one showed Emma and me standing in a field of sunflowers, our faces turned toward the sun. "Mom?" Emma appeared in the doorway in her pajamas. "Can I talk to you?" "Of course, sweetie. Come here." Emma curled up in the chair next to my easel. "I really like Dr. Mitchell." "I like him too. And I think he really likes you. Not just pretend likes you to get something he wants, but really likes who you are." The maturity in Emma's observation took my breath away. "What makes you think that?" "Because he listens when you talk. And he asked me what my favorite thing about you was, not what I thought he wanted to hear." "What did you tell him?" Emma grinned. "I told him that you're brave even when you're scared, and you always choose love over anger, and you make the best pancakes in the world." "And what did he say?" "He said I was lucky to have such a wise and strong mom, and that he could tell just by watching us together how much you love me." I pulled Emma into a hug. "Do you think you'd be okay if Dr. Mitchell and I keep dating? If eventually he and Sophie become a bigger part of our family?" Emma was quiet for a moment, thinking. "Mom, for a long time it was just you and me against Daddy's meanness. Now it's just you and me choosing happiness. If Dr. Mitchell and Sophie want to choose happiness with us, I think that could be really nice. What if things don't work out with James? Then it will still be you and me choosing happiness. That part doesn't change." The next morning brought a call from Detective Miller with news about Robert's situation in prison. "He's been moved to protective custody," Detective Miller reported. "Apparently word got around about his crimes against children, and other inmates weren't very welcoming." "Is he safe?" "Safe but isolated. He's spending most of his time in his cell, and his requests for early parole have been denied." "How much longer will he be in prison?" "At least 3 more years, possibly longer depending on his behavior." "But Zoe, there's something else." "He's been asking to write a letter to Emma." My protective instincts flared immediately. "Absolutely not. I told him you'd say that. But I wanted you to know he's asking. He claims he wants to apologize." "Even if that were true, Emma doesn't need his apology. She's moved on." "I agree. I'll make sure he understands that any attempt to contact Emma will result in additional charges." That afternoon, I told Emma about Robert's request. She listened thoughtfully. "What do you think he would say in a letter?" she asked. "I don't know, sweetie. Maybe he'd try to apologize, or maybe he'd try to manipulate you into feeling sorry for him." Emma nodded. "I don't need him to say sorry to know that what he did was wrong. And I don't need to forgive him to be happy." "You're absolutely right. Besides," Emma added with a grin, "I'm too busy being happy to spend time thinking about Daddy's problems." She was right. Our life was full of good things now: Emma's art competitions, my freelance marketing work, dinners with James and Sophie, weekend trips with Grace's family, and quiet evenings in our peaceful home. A month later, Emma's story was featured in Family Circle magazine. The article, titled "Brave at 9, How One Girl's Courage Saved Her Family," included photos of our art studio, Emma's tablet with her evidence folders, and the two of us working on a painting together. The response was overwhelming. Letters poured in from families around the country thanking Emma for her courage and sharing their own stories of survival. Social workers contacted us asking if Emma would be willing to speak to other children in similar situations. "I want to help," Emma told me as we read through the letters. "But I also want to stay a normal kid who goes to school and plays soccer and makes art. We'll find the right balance," I promised. The magazine article caught the attention of a publisher who wanted to turn Emma's story into a children's book about recognizing abuse and finding help. Emma was excited about the project but insisted on one condition. "I want to donate some of the money to help other kids whose parents can't afford lawyers," she said. "Because everyone deserves to be safe, not just people who have enough money to fight back." As I watched my daughter negotiate with publishers and plan her charitable giving, I marveled at the young woman she was becoming. Robert had tried to use her as a weapon against me, but instead she had become a force for good in the world. 6 months later, James asked Emma's permission to propose to me. She gave him not only her blessing but also advice on what kind of ring I would like and suggestions for the perfect proposal location. He proposed in our art studio, surrounded by all the paintings that told the story of our healing and growth. Emma and Sophie hid outside the door and cheered when I said yes. "Are you ready to be part of a bigger family?" I asked Emma later as we planned our small wedding. "Mom, we've been building our family all along. Grace and her kids, Patricia, Detective Miller, Angela, even Stephanie, they're all part of our family because they chose to love and protect us." Emma smiled. "James and Sophie are just making it official." Our wedding was held in the backyard of our house, surrounded by sunflowers and all the people who had helped us survive and thrive. Emma was my maid of honor, and Sophie was James's best man. Grace officiated the ceremony, and Patricia cried happy tears while Detective Miller took photos. During the reception, Emma stood up to make a toast. "When I was little, I thought families were just people who lived in the same house," she said, her voice clear and confident. "But I learned that real families are people who protect each other, who choose love over fear, and who help each other be brave when scary things happen." She raised her glass of sparkling cider. "Mom taught me that we can choose our own happiness, even when other people try to choose sadness for us. James and Sophie chose to be part of our happiness. So here's to families that we build with love instead of families that hurt us with fear." As everyone raised their glasses, I looked around at all the faces of people who had stood by us, fought for us, and celebrated our victory over Robert's cruelty. Emma was right, we had built our own family based on love, support, and mutual respect. That night, as James and I danced in our living room while Emma and Sophie painted wedding portraits at the kitchen table, I realized something profound. Robert had spent years trying to convince me that I was nothing, that I had nothing to offer the world. But looking at the life Emma and I had built from the ashes of his destruction, I knew the truth. We weren't nothing, we were everything. We were proof that love is stronger than hate, that truth is more powerful than lies, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. Robert was alone in a prison cell, having lost everything he thought mattered: his money, his reputation, his control over others. Meanwhile, Emma and I were surrounded by people who loved us for exactly who we were. In the end, we hadn't just survived Robert's attempt to destroy us. We had thrived beyond anything he could have imagined. And that, I realized, was the sweetest victory of all.